Dear Blockwalks participants, please welcome on stage Mr. Michael Gebert, Germany, Mr. Michael Lovacek, Czech Republic, Mr. Blaise Golab, Slovenia, Mrs. Helen Kopman, Belgium, Mr. Tadej Slapnik, Slovenia, Mr. Lukáš Hatala, and Mr. Tibor Vince from Slovakia. These distinguished guests will discuss the topic of how blockchain and other smart solutions are utilized within public sector. The panel discussion will be hosted by Mr. David Stancel, blockchain and cryptocurrency consultant from Slovakia.
Hello everybody. Welcome to our first panel, where we will be discussing how can be blockchain and other smart solutions be used in a public sector. As you can probably notice, we are missing few speakers who unfortunately couldn't attend and join us here, Mr. Tadej Slapnik and Mr. Gebert. But we still have a lot of honorable guests, so we have also enough time to discuss these interesting things. If you download the app, you can find the section under the survey where you can ask questions to our guest. So please do so, and feel free to actually ask questions. And we can start straight away with our discussion. And my first question would be to Mr. Vince. So I know as a Blockwalks team, you have been doing a global survey for the topic of utilization of blockchain in the public sector. So could you tell us a little bit more about it and what have you found out?
Sure. Thank you very much, David, for the word. And first of all, thank you very much to all of you for coming to Blockwalks conference, because without you, this event wouldn't be possible. So thank you very much for coming. And thank you for the word, David. The Blockchain Survey Initiative is another activity of Publicum, which is the official organizer of the Blockwalks conference. And basically, thanks to our partners, which is BDO and Deputy Prime Minister Office, we are running an initiative called Global Blockchain Survey on the topic of blockchain utilization within the public sector. Basically, the aim of the survey is to find out the current appetite of governments and public sector organizations for utilization of blockchain solutions. So we are just on the beginning. We are receiving a lot of answers, and currently it's approximately like 13 countries involved. But it's a nice number, but we have still like 180 countries to go, so we would be very happy if you could join us on this unexpected journey. And for this special occasion, I have just checked the primary results, and I can say they are very, very interesting. 60% of the respondents has responded that blockchain has utilization within the public sector. It is a very nice statement, but talking about use cases, the most of the use cases were talking about voting, about digital identity, about taxation, certifications, and very, in my opinion, very large-scale projects, which could not be really implemented in a couple of months. So it is nice to hear, but my recommendation is to rather focus on small projects which are very easy to implement and doesn't take such a long time for implementation. Talking about the use cases, I was keen to explore the answers on the potential barriers which are faced by the governments within the exploration and experimentation within the technology. And basically, the answers were pretty clear. The lack of the regulation, and also a lot of answers were saying that blockchain is very expensive to be implemented. So this is our just the primary results, but we see that there is the potential. But now the game is on our side, so we need to really move on. We need to talk. We need to put the local project to the global scale and talk about the technology and work on it together. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. So when we talk about the implementation of blockchain across the European Union, the question for all of you, and not only blockchain, also maybe smart solutions, how do you assess the EU's support for the deployment and use of blockchain and other smart solutions within the public administration? Who wants to answer?
Should I?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I mean, as I said in my introductory speech, the EU is supporting a very comprehensive strategy on blockchain. So for public services, the first things that we have done is this European blockchain partnership with all the member states, and the use cases that have been mentioned. It's true that they are indeed taking a bit of time. This is clear, especially when you start to look across borders. But the use cases that were selected in the partnership were not selected from scratch. So all of these use cases have already some implementation. So they already had some sort of proof of concept. So what is this challenge now is to do it across border. And it doesn't have to be all 28 member states, still 28, that do it for all of these use cases. It could be different, groupings of countries that wants to go forward in some of the use cases. So that's one of the real concrete things that we do for supporting public services on blockchains. And so what we do in the same fashion as we roll out these use cases is also the blockchain services infrastructure. So the underlying infrastructure is not has importance. It has importance because if we get that right and incorporating all kinds of functionalities and that we need to have, like data privacy, security, energy efficiency, and so on, if that you get that right, you can use this infrastructure for other things, other public services and private services. So I think, yes, extremely important that we got this partnership going. We hope we can build on that for a long time. And then in terms of other things that the EU is doing together with the member states and the public funding through the EU budget is the investment. I think it's really important that we can unlock investment both in terms of research and innovation and directly going supporting startups that are active in this field and comes at probably a bit more targeted problem solution for specific problems, which startups are great at doing. And then we support their growth as well in terms of actually taking equity in them. So I think these are like two things that we can do for the moment.
Okay. Anybody else wants to?
Yes, but let me first, my first introduction. So really glad to be here. Congratulations to Blockwalks and BDO. They were partners also on Forum on Future of Cities, which we organized a week ago. But now to your question. European dimension, how it helps, definitely helps big time, because it provides not just a platform like Observatory Forum, blockchain, but also political framework. And here I would recall from the last year, October, European Parliament resolution on blockchain and distributed ledger technologies, which highlighted 7 areas of the importance of development of blockchain and distributed ledger technologies. It means it provides a real framework, which direction R&D will go, where will be the financial instruments to support development, and where coalitions will be built.
Okay, thank you. So maybe regarding the EU support of smart cities, Mr. Lovacek, you want to maybe assess it?
Yeah, it's, I think the all important things were said, but regarding the cities, the obstacles and that sort of thing, from the really an old city, you can always develop a little bit more. And even the old cameras and solutions which are implemented already in a city. You can always develop and find a way of improvement, which is possible to connect with the new technologies.
Okay, so maybe you mentioned the old cities. So my follow-up question would be, how smart can a smart city be if it's already quite old? Like, what is the transformation?
There is no limitation for that. It's always good when they come, the municipality come to us to ask where should what we should start with, and what is the best way how to develop our city, which is the most comfort way for our citizens, and which solution will be in the short term provided to the citizens themselves. And I would like to tell one example. For example, in Prague, there is a camera from the year 76, and with the smart unit, which is connected to that camera, is completely implemented to the system of the smart city solutions, which are regulated. And it secured the metro line, so it secured the train. If there is no human being walking there, and so even if you have those old devices in a city, then you can always find a way how to develop and connect it to the system you want to have in the future.
Okay, maybe another follow-up question on this. So, would you say that smart cities require a different model of governance? Maybe a question for all of you as well. Somebody?
So, I would take this one. Blockchain is a very interesting topic if it comes to governance, because it is a clear shift of organizational archetype. So we are moving out of silos and out of integrated society into highly interactive society where the interactions between the different actors on peer-to-peer basis are possible. This is not just a political or technological change. This is mainly the cultural change, where we are opening brand new space for peer-to-peer interaction, for business opportunities, new way how citizens can interact with the governance bodies, how companies can interact with the citizens or the public administration entities. We can automate a lot of bureaucracy, or we can basically erase this bureaucracy because we don't need intermediary processors in between. We don't need paper at all. We can switch 90 to 80% bureaucracy from proactive, where I have to prove that I have everything in the right shape, into the reactive, when I need to go to the government office only if something is not right. And that's exactly what is the opportunity which is resulting out of blockchain, that we can automate a lot what is holding us back economically within the whole European ecosystem. And second stuff, we can also integrate huge amount of heterogeneous stakeholders, because at the moment we have a very rich application landscape, and this is such amount of application and integration which we are not able to bring into synchronized state any longer. So we have to acknowledge this fact and take this novel approach to solve this problem of the transparency in the European Union and establish this cross-border interaction between the entities on the various level.
I would like to pick up something you said about integration. I think it's a very good point. And for smart cities, I think we're only in the beginning of seeing how smart a smart city can be. And that's all about integration, because all these technologies, AI, blockchain, IoT, they need to be integrated. I think blockchain is a very good enabler for integration. If you look at it, sensors out there in the cities, capturing traffic data, transmitting that into a blockchain that would secure that data and how it's transacted. And then on top of that, you have artificial intelligence that would analyze the data and give the intelligence to the community, the smart city, to actually use that data. I think that those are real good enablers for this integration in the smart cities to happen. But one thing that is really also needed there is the data, the openness of data. For that and sharing the data so we can unlock that potential for innovation. But I think we're really just seeing the beginning of this and very exciting times ahead for smart cities. I think it's a great exploratory, experimental area that we should use more.
Yeah, on smart cities, what is important to see today that is after the first beginning of the big winners, Vienna, Barcelona, and those that really invest a lot of money, now the middle-sized cities are taking steps into this direction. And the whole concept was first driven by industry and, of course, for the reason of deployment of new technology and services. But now, with networks, Eurocities, for example, or EU project Digital Transformation of Cities, the mayors are becoming aware of complexity and they really have the approach of digital transformation. Because smart city varied from light, waste, inclusion of citizens, so there are a variety of areas. But with digital transformation, from starting point to the more mature level, this is then a real challenge that cities are entering now and are doing on that. And what was mentioned before, blockchain can be one of the drivers, also to improve the governance, but we need to be really precise where blockchain can be applied in the cities. So there are very niche areas, and those function well, but there are much more areas where first other technology should be implemented.
I would like to get back to this question regarding to the governance model and this transformation process. Like Mr. Lovacek, what is the basic requirement for turning a traditional city into a smart city?
There is not only one requirement, I would say, and you have to imagine that the sources on the planet are limited, and there will be more and more pressure to be environmental friendly, and there will be always safety a topic in a public sector, and we will have more and more requirements to keep all of us safe in the place where we live. Mm-hmm. And also, the human resources will be decreasing and human labor cost will be the opposite way, increasing. And we have to find a solution how we can manage all those things in a city without the human being, and how it could be as much as independent to the human being. And as the last thing, I would say that all of us, we will be focused to find the way how to save our free time. And that will be the rare commodity. And those are the points which motivates municipalities for the smart solution.
And within this topic, so if we want to add something?
I would like to elaborate on that a bit. What's the reason why we have a smart city? Smart city is just a vehicle which is enabling the city mayor to achieve his strategic priorities. This is well-being of citizens, fluid transportation, low noise level, good emission, fresh air. So that's the stuff he would like to achieve. Our cities are growing and are incredibly complex ecosystem. And just by having the data, that's not enough, because city is not a static system. That's structurally plastic system where things are evolved, and that's a living organism. And by coping with fact that the statical integration will not match evolving life of the city, blockchain can help, because blockchain is focused rather on the interaction of the various factors and the facts which are flowing within the city, rather than the statical interaction, which is becoming invalid by the time as city grow, as city evolve, as traffic and environment within the city have their own problem. So that's the way how the blockchain can amplify the smart city concept in order to be evergreen and match the requirements of the city, even as the situation will evolve, and be relevant to the citizens which are within the city and the mayor, which have to execute the strategic initiatives of the city.
Okay, so my next question would be in this, like, so let's get a little bit more specific and into details. So which, and to not talk only on an abstract level, so which concrete smart city solutions are most attractive to the citizens or to the government in terms of cost savings and improved services? I don't know who wants to pick up on that? Mr. Lovacek?
Maybe I can start with the word. Our colleague said example with Vienna and the middle cities which are following this way of developing the city. And I must say that we see it in the Czech Republic as well, that the cities like Písek and those middle cities, they come to us with the limited sources they have, and we invite them to our polygon to show them what they can have in their city. Most of the time, their requirement is to reduce the traffic, also regarding the CO2. And so, for example, in Písek, there is a guiding to you. You are guided to the parking spaces, then you don't have to travel a lot within a city to find a place to park. So there is a less CO2 emission. And on the other hand, they are focused on safety. So those things reduce the traffic regarding the CO2 and the safety for the citizens. So the camera systems and with the AI units, which can see if the human being is acting normally when he is getting into the car, or there is some strange move, which could be recognized by the camera, and some policemen nearby can check the person.
Somebody wants to add?
Maybe one example of really high-level maturity is Vienna trading of energy that is on blockchain, provided by solar panels on individual housing, and putting in a grid, so that's the most reasonable one, sophisticated. But then the real practical and good one, I would mention Fix My Street, or citizens' voice, or smart voice. When citizens propose the changes, they also, where is something broken in the city, where something can be improved, and this especially I would add this application and service as very, very important, because if citizens are not included in development, we don't have smart city. Yeah.
Okay. So my next question would be, blockchain in some of the implementations might be very energy intensive technology. How do you see playing this, like being implemented into the public sector? Because there is lots of discussion about the sustainability and green energy sources. So do you think with this classical proof of work based blockchains, do they have a chance to be implemented in the public sector as well?
I think for the moment we just see private permission blockchains coming along on the public services side, also for industry. It's much more permissioned private blockchains than public for the moment, but could have a public extension. So, I mean, the first way was clearly public. Now we're into the more permissioned, and then I think that there will be hybrids coming out. So that would perhaps have a core of more permission, a network or organization that more or less already interact and has some level of trust, and then you add some sort of services around that could be more public. again. And if you work in the permission space, there is no issue really on an energy, efficiency, it is energy efficient because the consensus mechanisms that you use there are more sustainable. But I think we need to work more on the consensus mechanisms and the protocols, and this is why we also support research and innovation on the protocol layer. So I think that also just to mention some extent, well, I think definitely energy peer-to-peer trading is something that you will see in smart cities coming more and more. Electrical vehicles, hydrogen cell vehicles, people producing energy, giving it to the grid, and selling it and so on. And blockchain is a very good fit with that sort of business model. I think we've seen some, you probably have some examples of that as well. So public, it has to be public. There has to be, if in a smart city, you can interact with the organizations that are in and know each other with the data, but then you will have to give some service to citizens, and for that you need a public dimension of it.
Somebody wants to pick up on that? Because oftentimes when this is being discussed, like this removing the energy, demanding part of the blockchain, the proof of work consensus mechanisms often raises concerns regarding the immutability of the blockchain. If it really will be immutable, which was actually one of the questions from the audience, will it be still immutable if we implement it in such a manner without the proof of work mechanism?
I think that the European Commission is already working on a resolution of that, and this is integration of electronic identity into that, so we are able to identify the individual who owns the data by referring to the national entity which is securing this identity, and I able to prove that it is the individual. So it will solve a lot of problem with proof of work, necessity, and all this question, as there will be a security provided by the national state. And we don't need to burn this energy for the same purpose, basically, as we solve it by the existing identity infrastructure. That's my humble opinion.
Okay. So what do you think what do you consider to be the most important areas of the economy that government needs to transform in order to effectively implement blockchain-based innovations? Which areas of economy? Somebody?
Maybe if city coin, obviously, when the market will be more regulated, that's the area I see it from the currencies, but being more stable, of course, and regulated. And the second, supply chain, agriculture, food traceability for the protection of consumers. So those are two very concrete areas where a huge breakthrough we will witness very soon.
Okay. Somebody else?
I see the value slightly differently. I see it in the industry space as such, because at the moment, what is slowing down European industry is the extensive paperwork and regulation where they need to comply to a lot of obstacles and impediments. And by blockchain, we have an opportunity to automate this stuff, to remove this administrative obstacle, speed up our European economy, because they can focus on generating the value. And based on scientific work, by changing organizational archetype to the generative one, when we enable by removing paper cost from the small transaction, so we make them possible, and by improving throughput of the big transaction, because they are not slowed down by the same paperwork and the regulation, we should take approximately 2 and 2.5 times more value out of European economy. So we will be victim on the brand new growth if we take this opportunity seriously and we really turn it into reality.
Okay, so we start to have a debate a bit. It's good to challenge this because it will really consume a huge amount of energy if we would want to the whole governance or so-called e-government process, if we want to do it now with the blockchain. So the danger is why? Because we will kill the energy bill, as simple as that. With existing technology today, this would be practically, we would go against sustainability agenda. And what you mentioned, what you asked before, this is really crucial. When technology, what kind of novelty and where we apply, we need to ask ourselves how much energy this also consumes. Because now really a Grundnorma, the highest norma today is sustainability and green development. And if solutions go against that in order that we are more faster and more efficient, so they are still, and this is danger in the cities, especially on digital transformation of cities, there are really good solutions to be implemented that are not blockchain. So we really need to be focused where we apply blockchain, especially in governance and city administration.
I would pick up on the question from audience. What is the worst case scenario when implementing blockchain and how to face the risk?
I would see the risk as a security risk. So blockchain is a relatively new technology and we have a lot of challenges in the security area, like re-encryption if we are going into public blockchain. Also GDPR risk, if we move personal data into a public ledger, it is difficult to remove it because we cannot force thousands of people around the world to erase their hard drive. An additional risk is the regulatory risk. It is very difficult to manage the impact what we have on the industry because by having something efficient and even with very good ideas which have to be implemented, it can go wrong. And in the distributed system, we need to consider proper level of governance so we can isolate and control the domain where we are assuming this efficiency, so we can minimize the damage and we can protect the citizen data and their property and rights as well.
Okay. And also maybe comment on that. I think the biggest risk I see is like what you see with all other technology being rolled out is that there's not a real problem to solve. That you apply technology because you want it to be tested and you want to try out and get experience. I think we have to be very selective now on where we apply blockchain. You know, it's not a panacea for everything. There are very good traditional IT technologies that can be used in most cases. But when you select them well and then you implement them with notions like privacy by design from beginning, and think about energy efficiency, think about security, then you can circumvent these risks. But the risk is not to address a real problem, and that you don't think through how you implement it, and then you can have big failures of blockchain projects that we really invested this much money, it gave us no added value. So that is a risk, and I think what we want to see now is real use cases that shows value. Yeah, I mean, we're still looking for it. I come across a few. Supply chain you mentioned is one. I think it's very ideal for using blockchain. We've seen big companies in logistics sector. I talked to one company yesterday, Maersk, that has a very prominent case in using blockchain for their whole supply chain across international borders, reducing enormous waste of time and resources, of money paper shuffling, sorry, and getting this very much more efficiently across borders and products and services to customers. So I think you need to select them well, implement them well.
Yeah, I would like to just follow up because we are talking about government institutions, we are talking about use cases, but we really cannot forget about the citizens, because without them, this wouldn't be possible. So we are facing the industrial revolution of 4.0. The smart technologies are part of our lives, but a lot of people on the street doesn't understand technology. I think this is the critical problem that the government should also educate the people. I mean, the people need to be educated, because if we create use case and people doesn't trust the technology, then there is no use case happening. So I would like to just point out that it's very important to educate even the citizens.
We have one very good reference in city of Zug in Switzerland, where was a small local election done by blockchain, and we received a 98% user satisfaction rate, and 75% of them claimed that they consider method of voting via blockchain more secure, and they trust it more than the traditional paper process. So I think that citizens will welcome if we can have the blockchain services from trusted sources like government or European Commission.
So we talked a bit about the opportunities the technology brings and a little bit about the risks that are maybe related to it. So I wonder, what is your take on, so what are really the biggest challenges and obstacles implementing blockchain or smart solutions into the public sector? I know, Ms. Kopman, you briefly, I think, mentioned it in your presentation. So, but if you have to name one or two biggest obstacles, what is it?
I think it's really just smart investment for the moment. Big investment and invested smart. I'm not even sure that I agree that there is a lot of regulatory obstacles. I mean, what we have seen so far is a couple of areas that I mentioned, the smart contracts and the tokens, how to classify them and so on, that we could need to look into, but it's not even sure that we need to do much. I mean, I think we need a harmonization, guidelines, some sort of soft regulation on that gives a bit clarity. It could even be interpreting the existing regulatory. It's not sure that we need to do something massive in terms of regulation. There's a lot of regulatory framework out there that could be used. So let's see if the regulatory challenge is that big. But I think investment and smart investment in projects that show added value is the challenge we still are facing right now.
Somebody else wants to take?
On next challenge, I would pick up cities, and definitely the role of data, who owns the data, how cities will create use cases out of data. As we know, they are now pushed in the trap of pay-as-you-go services, so provided by private sector. Nevertheless, it is very, very important, and there are some movements how cities would generate income out of data that is generated in the ecosystem of city, from all IoT devices to individuals. And then you and me as individual will give a consent as a citizen of Bratislava to the new mayor. I heard you have a new mayor, so I see Bratislava as a very good, attractive part for that. Who will create revenues out of my data, and how cities will create revenues. So this is the challenge and for the future. And blockchain also will play, and AI, of course, too, will play important role on that.
I see a huge obstacle somewhere else. We are living in European Union, and we should be citizens of European Union. Reality is that we are citizens of own countries, and we can consume the public sector services, electronic services in own country. But if we cross border, there actually exists a process how to consume electronic services of the other countries, but it is usually super complex. And majority of people are not going through this process, so they are basically foreigners in our European Union. So I would see the biggest added value of blockchain in removing this blocker of European citizen to be able to interact with the European public administration. So, for example, German citizen can come to the Slovak village and pay tax for a dog. And it should be a smooth journey. He have to use German ID. He have just to, via geomatics, list the government where he have to pay. He have to list the services what he can consume. He will click, pay via Apple Pay or whatever, and easy as that. Issue solved. We have opportunity to have the current e-government in the whole European Union user-centric and good for us. So I would see this as a biggest opportunity and the biggest obstacle as the same.
I don't know if gentlemen want to pick up on that. Biggest challenges of smart solutions being implemented?
It was actually in the beginning when we start to try to develop the cities in our country, there were obstacles that the citizen didn't ask for it. So the municipalities were not motivated to invest to the cities, even if they had some sources to do so. Therefore, we developed the unique Polygon Smart City system in Pilsen, where we are organizing the visits of the citizens, also of the municipalities, where they can see what is possible to have in their own city. And even the public, then they can see how it would be helpful for them in the daily business. And there is the motivation for the municipalities to give him that opportunity to have their own city better. So maybe it's the same with, as Mr. Vince mentioned, with the blockchain, that before people do not trust that, it's very hard to implement. And then, of course, when some sources come on the table, the municipalities start with something. Therefore, they have sources at this moment, and after a year or two, they come another time to have, I would like to develop it more. What are the options today? So the obstacles were immediately in the beginning when we started with it, because there was a motivation from European Union. But we select this way to change the thinking of the citizens and show them what the smart city look like.
Okay, so let me pick up on the question for the audience again, which is like, can governments get EU fundings for implementation and development of blockchain solutions in public sector? If yes, which funds? I guess that's for Ms. Kopman.
Yeah, there is. So in the European Blockchain Partnership and the use cases you heard about, there will be opportunities for funding. So these use cases, when we have specified them and start implementing, there will be procurements opportunities, so tenders put out there that anyone can bid on that has a solution to that problem. So there will be funding available now, perhaps limited in the coming year, but when we go into the next financial framework, there will be a scaling up of that amount. Then if you're a company, a startup, or an SME, you can just ask for funding on EU level in something called the European Innovation Council. SME instrument. As a single company, you can request funding for any type of idea that you have that needs to go the last step to the market, like refining your business model, testing with customers, and that doesn't have that for any type of technology, including blockchain. And then I should also mention there's the funding opportunity open right now in the area of blockchain to develop exactly new protocols and consensus mechanism security around blockchain technologies. It's open now until January, I think, for any consortia, project consortia to apply to that and say we want to address this issue, and we will want to advance the research and innovation area. So there's some different avenues. Okay. And not last but not least, I should mention the investment fund, where we will directly take equity in startups that are in the growth path, and create a very interesting portfolio companies that could be a future European ecosystem of blockchain. Future unicorns.
We are slowly running out of time, but maybe let's try one or two questions. There is from audience again, which has most likes. Is it possible to convince any government to implement blockchain globally? Who wants to answer that? Somebody?
Okay, let's start with little piece of history. When we started with blockchain in this country, 1.5 or 2 years ago, we've been receiving rejection. That's just for criminals. No, no, no. A year ago, we've been accepted. It is okay for fintechs and banks and coins. Just say something about Bitcoin and leave the stage. And today, we are very openly talking about blockchain in industry, in public sector, and we think how to take the benefit out of it. So we are on a good track in terms of social acceptance and management of change and the culture of people. We are starting to accept this new fact. We are thinking about that. So I think that it's just a matter of time when we have a global implementation of the blockchain, and we will be able to scale our economy in a generated way. So I am highly optimistic because we are on the right track and we have a very good speed.
Okay. Somebody else? Okay. So
I agree with that. The first implementation global will be industry. It will definitely be industry because they have global business. The governments normally look at their citizens and perhaps EU. So less of a global perspective, but we should not, of course, we should avoid that what we do on national EU level is not going against what's happening in other countries. So that's why we have created this international association of trusted blockchain applications. In that forum, we are talking on regulatory level with the world. So in the conference in Malaga next month, we will have governments from Asia, from Africa, and from Latin America, and so on. And we will there discuss what are your governments doing to promote blockchain for public services, and what road are you taking? So we will harmonize. I don't think there will be one standard or one way of doing it, but at least harmonization, I think, is important.
Yes, and even harmonization can be quite efficient because today we need to integrate and we have a lot of global obstacles we need to take. But in the future, if we have an American blockchain at the public sector, European blockchain, it is just a matter of one smart contract and one diplomatic agreement, and the business can flow. And we can continue. So it will simplify our macroeconomical processes significantly.
I like your enthusiasm. There's one topic that we haven't touched yet, and before we move forward to the lunch, Mr. Hatla, you are close to the topic of neuromorphic computing. So can you maybe tell, if we are already in the stage where we can expect use of neuromorphic computing in our everyday life in the foreseeable future?
Yes. Whole society and world is prepared to switch the way how it is operated. So the neuromorphic computes are computers where is no software and they don't compute at all. They just approximate, they learn, and they do what they should because they are able to self-adjust to the new conditions. They are actually the same living algorithms as we are based on electronics. And what we need the way how they can agree with the environment. So the consensus protocol of blockchain is great opportunity. They need the data. That's why the IoT system are ideal source of this data. So we are on a good track because we have all instances what we need in order to go to the truly interconnected, interactive economy where various actors can interact with each other. We are able to govern it, we are able to integrate it, and we are able to take benefit out of it. So our world is changing, and we have everything what we need. So it is an amazing future in front of us.
And maybe can you tell in which areas within the public sector we will see it first being implemented?
I think the first area will be a silver economy. So this is the social insurance and the healthcare, where we need to take care about the elderly people and sick people. So that's the first one, when the neuromorphic blockchain and IoT will have a significant footprint. The second one are the taxes. Having a central authority for taxes calculation is not so convenient in the distributed world as it should be, as we can calculate all taxes and VAT per transaction basis, and even state can have their income in real time, so we can speed up all the processes in the private and also public sector. And another disruption is coming into the banking market, where we will not pay for transaction, but we will get paid for the transaction in order to stimulate our ability to interact with the environment. So I'm quite optimistic, and I'm looking forward for next 2 or 3 years.
Okay, I would conclude it with your optimism. I believe our time is up. So I would like to thank you, all of our guests, for a very nice discussion. And I believe there is a lunch ahead of us, so let's enjoy it. Thank you.